everyone. Welcome back to No Time for Neutral. I'm your host, Georgia Hawthorne.
And I'm Andy.
And we're recording this on Monday, and to us, it appears as if Donald Trump is trying to break his own record of the longest government shutdown ever, which is 35 days. Today is day 27 of the government shutdown, which puts us 5 days away from SNAP benefits running dry and open enrollment for ACA plans with even higher premiums. But first, we're going to start with Donald Trump's beef with Canada. Andy, did you see any of this over the weekend?
A little bit, but yeah, fill us in, Georgie.
Okay, so I was having a lovely evening watching, I think I was watching Andor, and I get a notification at like 9:30 that's like, Donald Trump halts all trade negotiations with Canada. And I'm like, awesome, great, this is going to be good. And the story behind it is this guy really is from reality TV. Like Donald Trump really did come from reality TV because I can't make this kind of thing up. So, Ontario, Canada, which is a province up there, ran an ad over the World Series. And in the video, it's an old clip of President Reagan criticizing tariffs and explaining why tariffs are bad for the country, why they're bad for the economy, and so on and so forth. And we can appreciate the irony in this. One Republican president to another, right? So Trump absolutely lost his marbles, as he does, and halted all trade negotiations with Canada. And they've been in trade talks for months, I believe, trying to get something sorted out.
So he
And
literally halted this with like our biggest ally in the world, all because of this ad on television.
yes, because he got his feelings hurt by a TV ad.
What a little baby.
And since then, he has also added an extra 10% tariff on Canadian goods, which is awesome because tariffs are already hurting Montana farmers who have no choice but to import certain things like fertilizer and machinery and things like that in from Canada to keep their farms up and running. So yeah, I feel like it's really good to just make enemies with the country directly above you that you share a huge border with. We couldn't be friends, right? That would make too much sense.
Yeah, it's really unfortunate that we're living in an age where our trade networks are affected by the whims of our dictator.
Yeah, I mean, and we're seeing like, especially from an agricultural level, if you zoom into what's happening to Montana farmers and ranchers right now, the US markets are getting completely isolated from the rest of the world. Like the whole, oh, the US feeds the world thing, that's not a joke. That's true. And those markets are slowly and slowly disappearing because of Trump's insane tariff policy. And it's really hard to run a farm or a ranch when you can't sell anything.
Yeah.
If you have no profit coming in, it's not sustainable anymore.
Yeah, it's devastating. I grew up on a farm in northeastern Montana, up in Culbertson, and those farmers are getting hit hard. Like,
Yeah.
and it's unfortunate because a lot of these folks voted for this president, right? And he says one thing, but turns around and does something else. And in this
Right.
case, like, he said he was going to do the tariffs. That he actually did say he was going to do.
He did say that, yeah.
And this is the reality. This is what's happening.
Yeah, I know, and I know there's that knee-jerk reaction to be like, "We told you so!" Like, "We told you for months what was going to happen, and you called us crazy, and you didn't believe us, and now here you are, and you're upset." But also, like, at the same time, those are our neighbors.
Yeah.
Like, that's where we get our food. Um, so, like, I know there's an urge to be like, "Ah, I told you so," but, like, this moment is bigger than that. This could be absolutely terrible for agriculture as a whole in the state, but also for food prices.
It's make or break for many farms,
Hmm. Yeah.
ranchers. This will completely devastate hundreds of thousands of people.
Yeah.
Yeah, it will.
And I mean, the hits just keep coming if you're a farmer, because SNAP benefits will not be issued in the month of November, thanks to Republicans not being able to do their jobs, aka the government shutdown. So the SNAP fund has completely run dry. The appropriated money for SNAP from Congress will run out by the end of the month, which means there is no money in that specific account to go out in November. And there are 42 million Americans, and then there's 77,000 Montanans. So 77,000 of our neighbors rely on SNAP to put food on the table and feed their families and feed their kids.
That's about as many
And
people that live in the town of Missoula within our
so,
state.
yeah,
We're
yeah,
talking
we're
about
talking.
like the entire town of Missoula of people that
Mhm,
rely on SNAP. That's a lot.
right. That
Just
no, it's a crazy amount of people, and it's not that these people aren't working or they want a handout, or it's that she's a single mom with 2 kids and makes minimum wage and literally cannot afford to put food on the table and keep a roof over their heads. Those are the kinds of people that SNAP is helping keep afloat right now, and those are the kinds of people that are going to be vulnerable when it runs out. And the reason I say farmers are going to be impacted by SNAP running out as well is because 25 cents of every SNAP dollar goes to a local farmer or rancher. Because you can use SNAP money at farmers markets and things like that. So that's another stream of income for them that is just getting like completely axed. In the bigger picture, there is a $5 billion contingency fund for SNAP in the federal government. At some
Okay.
point, the federal government put $5 billion away and said, this is in case shit hits the fan. And I'm pretty sure we fall in that definition right now. But this $5 billion would only cover a little over half of the $9 billion it would take to fully fund SNAP benefits in November. Not that that matters though, because the White House and Congress are simply choosing to not use it. There is money appropriated for this exact situation, and the federal government is just saying, shucks, we're not going to use that money.
That's insane. So it's just sitting there collecting dust when it could actually be going to what they allocated it for?
Feeding kids? Under this administration? Absolutely not. But so the legality of this is kind of being called into question. There's a decent crowd of folks, mainly elected Democrats and various experts who have either worked in the federal government previously or are really knowledgeable about this kind of law. They're saying that Congress is legally obligated to tap that fund, to use that money. But again, that's not stopping them. That's not going to stop them. So I don't really know where that leaves us. If we have an administration that just can do whatever they want and face virtually no consequences or roadblocks, that puts us in a really tough position.
That's wild. That is so wild because, I mean, people are literally going to be going hungry. Some people
Right.
will be starving because of what's happening with with the government shutdown, with funding, with these programs.
Yeah.
And like the fact that there is an emergency fund that they literally created for moments like this and they won't access it.
Right.
Like my mind isn't even processing that right now. It
It
doesn't.
is because it's because they're so desperate to place the blame anywhere but on themselves, for the mess that they have created. And they are so desperate to the effect that they are willing to let millions of people go hungry. Because it can't be their shutdown, can't be their fault, even though they control all 3 branches of government.
Yeah.
They are so desperate to pin this on the Democrats to the broader electorate. That's the whole point here, is they want to be able to say Democrats took your SNAP benefits away because they shut down the government, even though that is not even remotely true.
Yeah, let's dive a little deeper into this government shutdown. So, just to remind folks, Republicans have majorities in all areas here. They have the House, they have the Senate. President Trump is a Republican. This is a Republican shutdown. So, all they need to get their shit passed, right, and reopen the government is 60 votes in the Senate. They currently have what, 52, 53?
Something like that.
Yeah. Um, so they
It's
just
53.
53? Yeah. So they need to get a small handful of Democrats on board, which shouldn't be too difficult, right? But what our wedge is right now is healthcare, because
Mm-hmm.
we are trying to save the basically Obamacare um, plans for folks, because in what the Republicans are proposing in this bill to keep the government afloat, people who are on the Affordable Care Plan, many of them will lose their health care. And
Right.
that is the wedge that basically the Hill Democrats are willing to die on right now
Mm-hmm.
to basically continue this government shutdown, right? And so Republicans are blaming Democrats for this, Democrats are blaming Republicans for this. But the thing is, Democrats, like, we actually can, because this is a Republican controlled government and Republicans cannot keep their government open, right?
Right. I mean, I couldn't have said it better myself, but I did come up with a pretty good analogy for one of my non political friends the other day. Andy, if you and I are going to go to dinner, and I'm the only one who can drive, I'm the only one who can drive us to dinner. And I say that I'm only driving us to dinner if we can stop and get ice cream afterwards. That's the only way I'm driving the car. That's the only way you're getting dinner, is if I'm getting ice cream afterwards because I have to drive. Are you refusing to go to dinner? Or are you saying, sure, yeah, we can get ice cream after if you want to?
See, I'm a very smart man when it comes to dinner and ice cream, because I will always say yes to ice cream. So therefore,
Well,
yeah,
obviously.
I will jump in that car with you and go to dinner and get ice cream. You can
Right.
have your ice
Perfect.
cream and eat it too.
You would think that Republicans would feel the same way about health care.
You would think.
People probably need to afford health insurance. That's probably my job. I should probably sign on to that. No. However, it is not, we are not completely out of options yet when it comes to the SNAP situation. And like Andy and I have been saying, it should not be this controversial or difficult to feed people, to feed kids. That this should not be this hard. Just stating that for the record. But this spring, the Montana legislature actually created an account and set aside about $200 million specifically for situations like this, when funding from the federal government falls through for programs that we run here in Montana. And it would cost the state about 14 or 15 million dollars to fund the month of November for Montana SNAP. 14 to 15 million dollars for every SNAP recipient to have continued access to food. We have the money. All it really comes down to is whether or not the governor is willing to sign off on that. Decision is his. He's in charge of the funds. So this is my call to action this episode. Give the governor a call. His phone number is 406-444-3111, or you can shoot him an email at governor@mt.gov, and tell him that it's his freaking responsibility to step up and feed our neighbors because he's the governor and he has the ability to do so.
Yeah. That's nearly 10% of our friends and neighbors in the state of Montana that will be affected for this. And like Georgie said, we do have a fund set aside for emergencies like these. So that phone call can go a long ways.
Mhm. Yeah, it is 110% up to him. He signs off on moving the money, um, and he says yes or no, and that's all there is to it. So if SNAP runs out in the month of November, you can thank Governor Gianforte for that one. But Andy, it is election season.
No way.
It is election season, and I'm starting to nerd out a little bit. I've been looking at way too many polls as of late. um, but I kind of want to walk you through the elections that I'm going to be watching, because we probably won't shoot another episode until after Election Day next week. So the first local race, the first Montana race I'm keeping my eyeballs on is the Missoula City Council Ward 3 race. Andy, you have maybe a little bit more familiarity with this race. Can you explain a little of the dynamics here?
Yes, I can. So, for those that don't know, I live in Missoula and I'm the chair of the Missoula County Democrats Central Committee. And this race in Ward 3 encompasses the University District, which is a very liberal district, right? Probably one of the most Democrat voting base in the state of Montana. And so when this race kicked off, there was 5 people on the primary ballot, and after the primary basically limited the number of people in this race to 2. So moving forward into this November election, there's 2 people on the ballot. The 2
Mm-hmm.
running are Daniel Carlino, who is the incumbent in Ward 3, and Jennifer Savage, who is running against Daniel. Jennifer Savage, up until about a month ago, was the representative for Ward 1, which is the Rattlesnake area. Her and her family recently bought a house and moved to Ward 3, and she is primarying Daniel Carlino. So those are the 2 on the ballot this fall.
Yeah, I'm interested to see how that one shakes out. When the wards got redrawn, everyone knew it was going to get interesting. But I'm taking the Ward 3 race almost as like a mini, almost like a case study. We're seeing this kind of narrative play out nationally of where the Democratic base actually is when it comes to policy. Does the Democratic base actually fall with this more moderate kind of candidate that the party's been running as of late, or do they actually resonate more strongly with the more progressive wing of the party? And we're starting to see candidates out of that progressive wing pop up out of the woodwork more and more in the last couple of years, but this year especially. And we kind of have this dynamic here with Jennifer Savage is more of a moderate Democrat, and Daniel Carlino is a self-proclaimed progressive. And so I'm very interested to see where Missoula decides on that, because if we have a liberal case study anywhere in this state, like you said, it's going to be this district. So I think this is a really interesting opportunity for us to kind of see where maybe Montana Democrats in specific are falling in comparison. The other 2 races I'm watching are mayoral races. Watching the Great Falls mayor race. This is a potentially a flip for Democrats. City council races are nonpartisan on the ballot, but you can tell when you look at candidates' websites and such, based on the way they phrase things, based on their endorsements and such. You can kind of get a feel for how they fall politically, even if they don't technically say that. So Great Falls would be a flip of sorts.
Like here in Missoula, some candidates actually seek the Democratic endorsement. So in Ward 3's case, both
Mhm.
Jeff Savage and Daniel Carlino sought out the Missoula County Democrats Central Committee endorsement, and we as a Central Committee voted to endorse both of them.
Sure. Do you just go based off of, like, do you adhere to democratic values and ideals? And if the answer is yes, then
They fill out a form, and if they were to fill out the form and say, no, I'm a Republican, or no, I think Democrats are the devil or something, then no, we wouldn't
Right.
consider them. But yes, they
Sure.
formally fill out a form, and then our committee votes on the candidate.
Nice. Okay. See, democracy at work, folks. But yeah, so there's a potential flip in Great Falls between Corey Reeves, who's the current mayor, and Jasmine Taylor, who's challenging him. And then in Helena, that mayor race is another of these like Montana Democrat case studies that I'm looking at. Emily Dean and Andy Shurtleff, those are the two candidates in Helena, and both of them lean democratically one way or another. And I'm very interested to see what voters pick there because Emily is very let's get things done. I want to do this. I want to do that. Very policy focused. Whereas Andy wants to be at events and like in the community and doing things that way in the mayor role. So I'm interested to see which of those tactics resonates with voters in Helena. Do you have any local races that you're looking at? Are there any that I'm missing, do you think?
Well, yeah, I guess I've kind of been hyper focused on Missoula because I live here. Um, the Proposition 50 in
Yeah.
California has me really interested. Basically, what that is a democratic process in which Governor Newsom wants to kick Trump's ass.
Yes.
I remember about a month or two ago when Donald Trump said to Greg Abbott, the governor of Texas, hey, find me 5 more Republican seats in Texas. And so Governor Abbott directed the Texas legislature to basically redistrict their state in a way that I don't think is legal, but shit, they did it anyway. And so the Democrats literally fled the state to Illinois.
Hmm.
Um, because when they leave the boundaries of the state of Texas, according to their Texas Constitution, the legislature can't do business. So that was their way to prevent that from happening, or at least like
Delay it.
pause and delaying it. In the end, Republicans won out because they have the majority and were able to do this redistricting. So now Governor Newsom in Democrat leaning or Democrat heavy California is planning to do the same thing. However, what's different about this is he is asking his voters to approve this rather than just
Right.
having the people in power do this.
Hmm.
He's asking voters to redistrict the state of California in a way that could potentially, and like this isn't a given, but could potentially give California more Democratic seats as a
Hmm.
combat Trump's bullshit in redistricting Texas.
Right. You explained that perfectly. The only thing I will add is I'm feeling pretty confident about Prop 50. It's one of the races I'm feeling better about. I saw some polling that had it passing with like 57% approval or something along those lines, um, which had it within the margin of error of the poll, meaning that so if the poll is off or can be off up to 2%, even with that margin of error, it still passes. So I'm feeling pretty confident about Prop 50. Another one that I'm looking at on a national level is the New Jersey governor's race. We have Mikey Sherrill, who's a current representative in the House, who's running against Jack Ciattarelli, who is a former state legislator in New Jersey. He has Donald Trump's endorsement all the way from here to Texas. He's being very loud about this race, which is kind of why I started picking up on it because I was like, if you're campaigning so hard for this race, what do you have? Like, what's going on? So I'm watching that one, and I think something that's important to note is that it came out, I think last week, that New Jersey and California are both going to have DOJ observers present at election sites, specifically in locations with high populations of immigrants. Something smells, and it smells like voter suppression.
You're right.
Um,
That's exactly what it is. Voter suppression and intimidation by the federal government.
Yay. I mean, like it's like as if people getting like kidnapped by ICE out of their homes isn't enough of a intimidation tactic for Americans who are Latino or so on and so forth. As if that isn't enough fear, they're going to literally post the feds at the election sites.
Crazy. Speaking of voter suppression, and like this isn't quite to that level, but it is something new here in Montana.
Yes, thank you.
Added barrier. I will say, like, it's an added thing, an added preventative measure to our voting structure. And if you don't do it, your ballot gets thrown out and your vote doesn't get counted.
Mm-hmm.
So in the last Montana state legislative session this spring, Braxton Mitchell, who is a Republican from Columbia Falls, proposed and passed legislation that requires your birth year to be put on your ballot. So, or on the envelope of your ballot, I should specify.
Mm-hmm.
So when you fill out your ballot, put it in the security envelope, then you put the security envelope into the envelope. On the envelope, you sign your name, right? Now you have to sign your name and put your year of birth on there. If you forget the year of birth, your ballot is thrown in the garbage, does not get counted.
Mm-hmm.
Not forget that piece. That is a new piece that has not been done in past elections. Do not forget that new piece.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's one of their election integrity bullshit laws, saying that they need to be able to verify your signature and that your birth year matches with like what they have on file and so on and so forth. And if you do forget, you can fix it. You'll have to go into your county elections office and say, "Hello, I forgot to put my birth year on this. I need to fix it." And they'll make you present a photo ID of some kind, driver's license, passport, tribal ID, student ID, all of those things will work. But you will have to go in person to get that fixed, unfortunately, because Republicans wouldn't win if voting was easy, simply put. But the other two races I'm keeping an eye out for next week are the Virginia governor race between Abigail Spanberger, she's a Democrat who's a current rep in the House, versus Winsome Earl Sears, who's the current lieutenant governor of Virginia. And from what I have seen, she just seems nuts. But, I'm not surprised at this point. And then if you haven't seen this on social media yet, I'd be kind of impressed. But the race I'm most excited for personally is the New York City mayor race between Zoran Mamdani, who's the Democratic nominee, Andrew Cuomo, who is the former governor of New York and running as an independent after he lost the Democratic primary, and Curtis Sliwa, who's the Republican nominee. This has been a very online race. Feel like you can't go on anything without seeing clips of this race. But another one of those where do Democrats fall? Do they fall with the moderate or do they fall with the progressive? And what does that mean for the future of the Democratic Party, essentially? Because you have Andrew Cuomo, who is a Democrat, but he's a very moderate Democrat in compared to Zoran, who is a self-proclaimed Democratic socialist, but won the Democratic primary. He ran as a Democrat and secured that nomination. And those two are the top two contenders. Curtis Sliwa, he's staying in the race. God bless him. He's been offered like $1 million to drop out of the race in order to stop pulling votes away from Cuomo. And he basically said, "Yeah, over my dead body am I dropping out of this race." He's hilarious. I just think he's funny. But it's between Zoran and Cuomo for who will actually win. Zoran's leading in the polls pretty significantly from what I've seen, but I'm not in the business of trusting polling much these days. I've been burned by a poll way too many times at this point. So we'll see how that shakes out. And
Let's just say.
yeah, it'll be interesting because you've got, I mean, Republicans and Donald Trump think that Zoran is actually the devil incarnate. He's been subject to some of the most vile things I've seen on the internet in a long time. But now they're like threatening to go after like his naturalization, like they're threatening to denaturalize him, which would make him vulnerable to be deported. Which for a guy who has a very legitimate shot at becoming the mayor of the largest American city, that's really wild behavior from the federal government. To potentially like scope out this plan of attack against what might happen.
Yeah, that's some wild and crazy shit. It's a really interesting race. I'm fascinated myself. I was in New York this spring. Yeah, this spring before the primary. And I was hanging out in Brooklyn with my friend Christopher. And he was telling me that he had recently gone to this political event a few weeks ago and met Zoran Mondami. And at that time, he was like basically this unknown candidate. And even Christopher at the time was like, he doesn't have the best shot at winning the primary, but he's really great and people love him. A month later, he won the primary and
Mm-hmm.
we're absolutely shocked. So yeah, this is a fascinating race. I'm
Yeah. I'm super excited to see how it shakes out, and I'm really interested to just see what races look like across the country as a whole. Um, because I mean, midterm years are generally good electoral years for the party that's not in power. So historically, Democrats should pick up seats in 2026. Um, but again, I'm historically questionable. I'm not betting on that until I see it with my own eyes. And that's why I'm watching these races so hard, is to see if there is a hint of that blue wave simmering in the American public, or if we have a lot more work to do in the next year. But let's end on a good note. What did you do this weekend?
What did I do this weekend? I was in a Halloween cabaret in
Oh,
Atlander called Netflix and Chills. And it had 16 different numbers, solos, group numbers, kind of vaudeville style stuff, cabaret, of all sorts of like fun Halloweeny stuff. Uh,
nice. That sounds super fun.
yeah, I was in a variety of different things, but the number that was definitely my favorite was my drag number, where me
Oh,
and two other men portrayed the Sanderson sisters from Hocus Pocus.
nice.
I would like to dedicate that performance to Representative Braxton Mitchell. Um, yeah.
Oh, that sounds so much fun. That's way more fun than my weekend was.
What'd you do?
I drove from Great Falls to Spokane and back because my work laptop broke a couple weeks back. I took it into Best Buy. Best Buy sent it in for repairs. I didn't have it for 3 weeks. And then when it got back, they were like, "Oh yeah, we didn't fix it actually. Um, Apple had some issue, so they wouldn't fix it." And I have Apple Care, I have the warranty. I bought the computer less than 6 months ago. Like this thing is brand new. Um, and the damage on it was worse when I got it back.
Oh
So I
no.
just had like a line of dead pixels that were out, like on my screen.
Oh,
And when I got the computer back, there was a crack at the bottom.
like they
And so I was like, that that wasn't me. I haven't had this thing for a month. And when I handed it to you, there was no crack. And they were like, well, whatever. I don't know what to tell you. And I was already planning on just taking it to the Apple store anyway. So that's why I was driving all the way to Spokane. I had to drive from Great Falls to Missoula to pick it up from the Missoula Best Buy because I dropped it off before I moved, and then finished the drive to Spokane to take it into the Apple store. But Apple took care of me, all is well. Like, they're not charging me for it. It's getting fixed. I'll have my good laptop back in a week. And I am so excited to have my laptop back. But moral of the story, if you have an Apple device, just take it to the Apple store. Don't go through Best Buy, in my opinion. But that's what we've got for you this week. Make sure you get your ballot turned in. Don't forget your birth year, and call the governor and tell him to fund SNAP, for crying out loud. And we'll see you next week.